the Maggie Rad tip of the week.
Okay, Sparky.
Beautiful. So this week's tip of the week. Apparently, you guys have had maybe a little bit of rain.
A couple 2-3 inches.
Yeah. So when it begins to rain, there's we get a lot of calls about sump pumps, and the most common question is, what is the right size pump, and/or what horsepower do I need? Because they're always labeled in horsepower. So we're gonna make.
Don't
this
the
real
horses
simple.
drown when you put them in the water?
They do. They do.
Okay.
But as long as it's not over their noses.
Oh, okay.
So there's two things you need to consider right off the get-go. So how high are you pumping the water? So if you're in a crawl space or you're in a basement, and the typical sump pit is 24 to 30 inches deep.
Yeah.
So say you got your 8-foot basement, so you want to use 10 feet vertical.
Right.
Now, next, how far horizontally are you pumping it? So a lot of times your sump pit's right next to the outside wall, and maybe it only goes 2 feet. Or maybe your pump's in one corner, it goes across the basement and out the side.
Uh-huh.
So you need that distance as well. So you want to measure the distance from where the pump, exit the home, and then you might only have 3 or 4 feet. So once you have those numbers, you add them together, and in our example, I'm going to use 14 feet.
Okay.
10 feet up, 4 feet out. Okay?
Okay.
So a half horsepower pump with a 1.5 discharge.
1.5 inch pipe.
Discharge, which is
pipe.
pretty standard
Uh-huh.
for sump pump.
Yep.
Will pump from 3,360 to 3,660 gallons per minute. That's not bad. And that would take care of most homes at 14 feet. But let's say you got to go 20 feet, 10 feet up and 10 feet over.
Okay.
That very same half horsepower pump will only do 2,520 gallons per minute. That's how much drop off there is.
Wow.
So you need to look at the box carefully, or look at the sizing chart.
Uh-huh.
So in case you might need a shorter run, you could go with if you wanted to keep up the same as a 14-foot run, the 3,360, a 3/4 horsepower pump with a 1.5 inch discharge will pump 3,571 gallons at 20 feet. So from 14 feet to 20 feet, you actually need to go up to a 3/4 horse just to get the same gallons per minute.
Wow.
So that's where people got to understand that. So then I'm Googling.
Uh-huh. You're on the Google machine?
And I love when I Google stuff. So now every ad I look at is sump pumps.
Right.
All my fed stuff, no
Yep.
matter where I go, I get nothing but sump pumps.
Sure.
But I looked at one, and it says right on the box, it says 5,000 gallons per minute, this pump.
Wow.
But it also says it's 0.
Right. That's coming out of the pump.
Right. No rise, no run.
Uh-huh.
So please, like we always say, be careful, be vigilant, and read, because it's not always what it appears to be.
Right.
So you have to look at those charts. So look at your rise, look at your run, and then size your pump accordingly. If you live in a wet area, then you might want a high gallon per minute pump. But if it very rarely runs, then it's not quite as a big deal. And always put the check valve on there.
Yes.
So then also, when it comes to buying a sump pump, though, I prefer the stainless models myself.
Okay.
And I like the fixed float switches. I don't like those ones that are on a cord that kind of float around.
Yes, because they can get tangled up.
They do. They get tangled up. I had one in my own house where it melted.
Really?
It was an Ace Hardware one, and it was melted.
Really?
So
Wow.
I don't know what's in there that it was stuck up or down, but anyway, but yeah, it melted.
Oh, because the switch is actually in there, and it probably shorted out, and it was
Yeah.
arcing, and then it melted it.
Yeah.
That's probably what
So that was the last one of those I ever did.
happened.
Also, don't confuse a sump pump with an ejector pump. They serve different purpose, connected differently.
Uh-huh.
Most sump pits are 24 to 30 inches deep. An ejector pit is typically 30. It must be 36 inches deep. Also should have a sealed lid. But also you could consider putting a sealed lid on a sump pump also, just because radon.
Right.
But a sump pit doesn't need to be vented, whereas an ejector pit does have a vent. So
Correct.
that's just one of those weird things.
Yep.
One last comment, it's electrical. The National Electrical Code is awkward when it comes to sump pumps. So 2008, the NEC removed the exception for 120-volt non-GFI receptacles in dedicated spaces like garages and unfinished basements. So in a sense, they used to say, yeah, for sump pump, yeah, you really don't want that on a GFI, so we excluded it, but they got rid of that. So now technically, your sump pump has to be on a GFI, but I don't recommend it.
So put the GFI in, pass inspection.
Get your inspection.
And then remove it.
But we didn't. See, now that to me is the worst thing to say than what I said earlier.
What?
It.
Right. Yeah.
Because you should never tell people to do one thing and then change it later. But unfortunately, the way the rule is written, if you have a GFI on your sump pump, it's unlikely because the way GFIs work, it doesn't necessarily blow, but it can. And if it pops, basement floods.
Right.
Not good.
Right. Let it run. Let it run, and you're good. So the other thing is battery backup systems are good if you've got a finished basement, and there's a bunch of different designs out there. And then there's that one.
Yeah, the water runs on the city water. You can't have a well.
Correct.
I ran mine on well water, and it didn't work when the power went out.
No, it doesn't work very well. So, all right. We got Elliot Richardson hanging out in the wings from the SBAC. We'll talk to him next, right after the news. You are listening to
Mighty House.
This is Mighty House. Mighty House will return